All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast series, but the QA, SGGQA, is the important part. Obviously stands for question and answer. We like to make this an interactive conversation every Monday morning. Most Monday mornings, sometimes I give myself a week off, but I like to kick off our week, get it started right. For those of us of the techie persuasion, of the nerdy and geeky persuasion, not just spitting out some headlines on social media, just giving ourselves some time to kind of look at the news from the last week, or maybe some news broke over the weekend, and have a conversation about it. Watch as these stories evolve over time, not just get outraged at a single headline. I'm already seeing some incredible names here in the live stream chat. I see Screen on Time YT. Hey, saying hello to Jimmy and Simon. I got Mr. John Gao, who has been submitting tons of news on the private Discord. Some excellent stories coming by way of John Gao. We've got Simon Says Hypno. We've got Ron GKP, where I'm way back in the fight. Jimmy Fire Dragon, making sure we're all staying hydrated. We got Georgie. Now, Georgie in the chat here, this is kind of a biggie, because I'm going to start detailing the most popular photos on our little Android digg.com community shot on Android. And Georgie had a stunning entry last week. Absolutely deserving of the top trafficked photo on that community last week. We got to see, is Georgie in for a repeat this week with the top photos that have been posted on our little community? I think we got Command Control Device. We've got Scoop. He's jumping in saying, one. We got Furchenvel saying, hola. I'm going to say, like, ¿qué tal? We got, I'm missing people. I'm so sorry. Simon Says Hypno already jumping in. Did you get a chance to check out the Viso Z1 Pro at CES? I did not. What is a Viso Z1? I'm gonna have to look that up, Simon. Sorry, I don't think I know what that is. So, I hope everybody out there had a lovely weekend. We had our booties handed to us. Last week was crazy busy. I'm going to go through the housekeeping. I got some workout too, which was kind of incredible, all things considered. But my daughter had a talent show. The school talent show was last Friday. That already feels like a month ago. She recited a lovely Shel Silverstein poem in character. So she really turned it into like a performance piece, a performance monologue. It was super adorable. But then, of course, we had to have the cast party. I can't tell you, like, fourth graders are engaging in social dynamics that I did not have access to until like junior high. We had like a little talent show cast party, and they were running around a pizzeria, and we were just having this really, really good time. No one got to bed before 11 o'clock. My daughter was a mess, because then on Saturday, our softball league always does a season parade. So we go to the local high school and we do like a little parade. All of the teams have like costumes and banners, and they play music and do dances and sketches and stuff. So my daughter had to go from talent show to softball parade. And then yesterday was the Superb Owl. And we had to cancel plans with friends. We were not feeling great. And this was kind of sad. I don't even know if any of my friends still listen to my own podcast. But unfortunately, a few of the younger kids weren't feeling well. So one kid woke up the morning of the Super Bowl, was running a fever. Another kid had been throwing up the night before. Marie and I are exhaustified. And so unfortunately we had to cancel plans, because like I just can't handle getting yet another head cold, or having Marie get like another stomach bug, or even having Lex be sick right up into her first week of legit softball practices, and we're going to have games, and like it's just too much. Just too much. So we stayed at home. We watched the Super Bowl. I made up little sliders. I mean, just got some ground beef, a little salt, a little pepper, smashed them on a griddle. It was tasty. They were delicious. I probably ate roughly 3.5 avocados worth of guac all by myself. Um, It's not my proudest moment. I'm definitely feeling it today. I'm a little pudgier around the midsection than I maybe was yesterday. But I hope everybody who celebrated had a lovely Super Bowl. Um, I did have to be snarky. Like yesterday morning, I posted a happy superb owl, and I posted that photo of the baby horned owl that landed on our back patio a couple years ago. But I gotta say, for not really being into football, last night's game was actually kind of interesting, just for it being such a brutal defensive matchup between two teams that I really don't care about. So I had no horse in this race. I didn't really care. It was just kind of cool to see some athleticism. Lex actually asked some questions. My wife is super not into football. I really haven't followed football in probably since Lex was born, probably a little over 10 years. And so I'm just explaining, like, well, this is how the downs work, and this is what this means, and this is what the quarterback does, and this is how this happens, and you can have this kind of play or this kind of defense. And I'm like kind of watching her try to take all this in, realizing like this sport is even more bonkers than softball, which was pretty cute. But again, by the end of it, she at least understood the flow of the game, and so she was watching part of it. She had a good time. We very much enjoyed the halftime show because we were not watching the alternative Sinclair broadcast uh, halftime show for Americans with sensitive and weak constitutions to the existence of other than white people existing. So we saw the good halftime show. I thought it was a lovely performance, and who knew Ricky Martin could really like, I mean, like mariachi style, like really get in there. I was very impressed. So yeah, it was a good night. But this was a full weekend. I am still like I'm gonna finish this podcast. I'm gonna get the audio version out for the patrons and for folks who subscribe somegadgetguy.com. Actually, the audio versions have been getting this little uptick in traffic. So I don't know if people are sharing more, or if, maybe you're reviewing the podcast on your favorite podcast catchers. But if you're helping or contributing, I greatly appreciate it. The numbers have been looking really healthy these last couple weeks. But after I do all that, I'm gonna go take a nap. I'm gonna take a busted old man who's tired and cranky at the world nap, because I'm definitely I'm definitely feeling it. Hold on one second. Take a quick drink of coffee. All right, let's see. Brian Billings. Hello, everyone. Dropping in live today for the first time in several weeks. What is up? Mountain Dew Lou also saying hello. Brian saying, I didn't watch the game this year. Instead, finally watched It Comes at Night after procrastinating for several years. It gets a solid okay from me. I can't remember. I know I've seen it. It Comes at Night. Is that the Nick Cage movie? If it's the movie I'm thinking of, it might not be that one. If it's the movie I'm thinking of, I also was like, oh, I'm glad I saw it, and I appreciate that it exists, but it wasn't. I didn't remember it being anything horribly spectacular. Simon says, Hypno, the Seattle Starbucks versus the New England Practicals, yes? Screen on time. Haha, the Seattle Starbucks. Um, I I love it because again, I'm so hardcore geeky, and I don't know what PR mailing lists I've been put on. But I will comment, Marie and I, we do fall into that trap of watching the Super Bowl for the commercials. We used to work at competing talent agencies, and we would play this game, like how many of our clients were in Super Bowl commercials versus your clients. Then we were working at competing casting facilities, and then we would play this game. How many commercials did we cast versus how many commercials did you cast? So there's still this like we don't work in that sector of entertainment anymore, but we still kind of keep up with the commercials. I have to say, this is feeling a lot like the dying gasps, the big push, tons of AI commercials, tons of AI generated commercials, tons of like tech company, hey, we're going to do this and you need to be a part of that kind of slop commentary. And then of course all kinds of gambling commercials, which is just so infuriating. And it just kills me that we're still entertaining this as any kind of experiment, that it's never going to be terrible for for a country whenever you legalize sort of unregulated online sports gambling. Uh, but I did think it was funny. We're seeing so many of these tech company pushes into traditional sports marketing and television commercials and stuff like that. And I wake up this morning, and like the top PR email. I wish I could pull it up because like I didn't do a good job of like saving it or pulling up the email. But oh, you know what? Let me I can read it to you. Let me pull it up from my phone here because I want to make sure I get this right. Okay. So this is from the IT Asset Management Group, the ITAMG, and the headline of their study: Amazon Ring Super Bowl ad sparks controversy, leading to a 113% increase in searches for cancel Ring subscription. The commercial opens with a candid clip of a girl reuniting with her dog before shifting to a dramatized missing pet scenario narrated by founder Jamie Siminoff. It contrasts traditional search tactics with Ring's new Search Party for Dogs feature. Now, I saw this commercial and I turned to Marie and I turned to Lex and say, boy, I think that's kind of ghastly. I understand what they're doing to showcase this kind of like image recognition technology, but it's gonna be accessible for like every person, every car, everything. Like I have a gimbal that can track faces and people and pets and objects and stuff like that. Knowing that Amazon is putting this kind of tech into doorbell cameras that don't require warrants for searching people's activity is pretty horrific. So we just had a cute little chuckle on the couch over sliders and corn chips and guac. While some have found this wholesome and heartwarming, others said it heightened concerns about surveillance and neighborhood monitoring, prompting many to reconsider their subscription. So when I say like it had that feeling of the .com bubble burst, there was all of this presentation, and I really feel these companies have lost the plot on how to talk to consumers. Just like I left CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, talking about NVIDIA hosting a presentation that was basically saying, we're post-consumer, you little people who buy products and services don't matter anymore because we can just trade billions of dollars amongst massive trillion-dollar cap corporations. And that's the kind of tone deaf feeling a lot of this stuff had. So congratulations, Amazon. I don't know what the ad buy was this year, how much money per minute you would have to spend to like have a commercial in the Super Bowl, but the impact of your commercial being so wickedly tone deaf as to what consumers really want in their cameras that spy on their neighbors' homes was an increase in people looking to cancel their Ring subscriptions. So I feel like that was an accomplishment. Good job, Amazon. I mean, if that adds to the list of people in my circles who have also maybe like canceled Prime, like me, because I canceled Prime, then hopefully we can address some of the inequity in, in our products and services. It's pretty great. It's pretty awesome. Oh, Brian Billing. Okay, it was the Joel Edgerton post-apocalyptic film with his family living in the woods. So I saw that at the same, like in literally the same weekend that I saw. I can't remember what the Nick Cage film is, but it's Nick Cage with his two sons living out in the woods, and there's something supernatural happening. Okay, so also the Joel Edgerton one, if that's the movie. Also, again, I thought it was a fine film. I thought it was well produced. I like a quiet, slow build. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. But also just like, okay, well, I saw that, and I don't think I need to dwell on or see it ever again. It's fine. Oh, Bionic Scoop. The only one I cared about was the Cadillac F1 livery reveal. I'm not into F1, so I honestly don't know what those words mean, but the cars look real cool, and I'm glad they go real fast. I felt like the F1 movie was too overly simplistic. Me not being a fan of F1, when two characters are talking about, you know what we need to win is a car that can go faster in the turns. And you're like, okay. Oh, that was it. I'm sure that is the kind of high level strategy that's happening between a seasoned race car driver and a NASA engineer car designer. Cool. It was a fun movie, but it felt a little dumb and did not draw me into the specifics. Who was it? It was Nick. Yeah, Nick over at Fandroid was telling me I really should start watching the. I can't remember what it's called, the F1 reality show. I think it's on Netflix. And he was like, "Yeah, you actually will learn a lot about the behind the scenes kind of team strategies and stuff." So I should really give that a shot. From Jeremy Moat, hey Juan and chat. So are we talking about the breaking news about Discord today? I missed that there was breaking news about Discord. If someone would like to maybe hit that up on the private Discord, if there's news about Discord it to me, and maybe we can add it to the show notes or to the run up. From Consumer Compute, that's like the RAM issue for computers. And yes, I do also know that they're stripping it for AI, but really not looking out for the small consumer. Absolutely spot on. GPUs, storage, RAM. I feel like we're going to start seeing chip issues like SoCs for mobile devices and full computer chips for desktops and laptops. It's going to start squeezing all of us, and it's hilarious how it's all built on really stupid speculation. So it's pretty great. Oh, Dr. Claw is saying there's Discord and poopification happening. Man, see, like, it's not, excuse me, it's not quite robust enough. I really do like that there is a private chat in Discord, but they don't have a very good way to parse out rooms. So you end up with these sort of like multiple chats from the same creator that can be called different things. But then if you have other Patreon projects that you follow, it gets way too messy. But if Discord completely impoopifies, excuse me, then I guess we could just roll back to the Patreon chat until maybe the Patreon chat or something else pops up. Worst case scenario, I'll get my little mini PC and just run some kind of open source chat conversation, and it'll just be really slow and terrible because I have no upload speeds here in Southern California. So it's pretty great. Let's get this out of here. Oh, cool. Jeremy Moat says he just threw it in the podcast channel. Let me pull that up here. Oh, I might not be able to send it over to screen share it, but let me just read what happened. Oh, this is so stupid. This is coming by way of The Verge. We're just going to jump into some news here right now. This is breaking news, by the way. And thank you, Jeremy, for linking this. Discord will require a face scan or ID for full access next month. Discord announced on Monday that it's rolling out age verification on its platform globally starting next month, when it will automatically set all users' accounts to teen-appropriate experience unless they demonstrate they're adults. Yeah, I'm not doing that. I cannot care less that Discord is trying to protect and think of the children. So no, we'll just let the private Discord be teen appropriate, and if there's something a little spicier, you can hit me up on the Patreon. That is stupid. That is real dumb. So, again, welcome. and I'm not going to ignore you, but if you all want to have like a much more in-depth F1 conversation in the chat while I just ramble on about wacky tech politics and stuff, you guys go for it. I am here for it. I will reread the chat at a later date, but I'm going to get on with the show. We have some housekeeping to knock out. Like I said, for last week being so crazy busy, I did actually get some work out. The public publish, so this was early access on the Patreon, and now it went public. The 8849 Tank X review, a super bright 1080p projector with a phone attached. This is one of my favorite lines of phones to cover. I need to cover a few more of the competing rugged devices. The problem is, to totally sidetrack our housekeeping here, I don't charge for reviews. I don't do sponsored reviews. The second I call something a review, I completely separate that from anything that's monetized. I even don't like putting, like sponsored ads into a review. I want there to be as clear a separation from anything that's been paid for against anything that is my earnest opinion about a product or service. So I get a ton of insulting pitches from international, mostly Asian market PR that really want to build long-term relationship with you, but what we need is a 15-minute video where you call it a review, and it has to be called a review, and you compare it with our competitors' products, and you follow our script where we say that our product is the best, and then you get to keep the phone, and we'll even give you $100 and an affiliate link where if you promote our product across social media, you could make tens of dollars more. And it pisses me off so viciously because the only reason they can offer that is because it works. Is that there are a bunch of people out there on social media, on TikTok, on YouTube, who will do that and call their video a review, probably not properly disclose that it was a paid for, advertisement for the brand, like all of the stuff that we're supposed to like follow the rules and things. And so I'll push back and say like, hey, I'm totally happy to review your product, but this is what I call a review, and I'm happy to do a sponsored video, but I will not call it a review, and I will not draw a conclusion on that video. But, we can't blur the lines here. And then it's like multiple emails back where it's like, well, but we need this, and oh, you're too expensive, and oh, the prices for this. And you're like, I don't care. You're trying to get me to handle a $400 phone, and if I wanted it, I could just go buy it. Your product is not special. And then they get real mad that I call them out on stuff like that. I could be making a lot more money if I were a bit more diplomatic about how I handle sponsorships. But it's just so insulting, the initial offer, that I have to at least let them be as aggravated back as they've made me. So the reason, one of the reasons why I really do like covering these tank devices is because the folks at 8849 will reach out and say, hey, do you want to review this phone? And I'll say, sure. And they send me one. And then if I have a good experience with the phone, I can tell you that. And if I have a bad experience with the phone, I can tell you that. And also, they don't seem to mind that I like to make fun of their phones, that the tanks are absolutely not good phones. In anything that you consider a smartphone experience, the tank is not going to satisfy that. It is not about that. The tank is a ridiculous, over-the-top, everything in the kitchen sink, internet-enabled appliance. And when you need one, you are so happy you have it. But if you're like, oh, I wonder if I can mount this to the MagSafe on my windshield. No. That is not what a tank is for. So I got that video out early access last week, and then it went live later in the week. But I love playing with a phone that is so crazy over accessorized. Like, it's got a 1080p projector, and it's actually the brightest projector I've seen yet in a mobile device like this. But to do that, you also need a crazy loud internal fan. But then you can use the crazy loud internal fan to also cool the phone when it's charging and when you're playing games. So it's like a gaming phone, but on a mid-ranger processor. It's so ridiculous. Okay, if you want my actual thoughts on the phone, I more gracefully edited a video that you can catch. Yeah, Bionic Scoop. Oh, dude, the 8849 makes my hips hurt thinking about carrying it. So one, you can't put it in cargo shorts because it's gonna kneecap you. The only time I tried, I had a Tank. It was when I was reviewing the Tank 3S. I think it was the Tank 3S, and I had the Tank 3 Pro, and I just wanted to talk about how they were different. And I'm still limping because the Tank 3 Pro broke my foot. I dropped the Tank 3 Pro, And being an idiot, I tried to soften the landing by sticking my foot out so it would kind of bounce off my foot instead of hitting screen down on concrete. And then I was limping for days after that. But I had the Tank 3 Pro in my cargo shorts, and I was doing something. I was like taking some video, and I just turned, and the mass of the Tank 3 Pro in my cargo pockets raked the top of my knee. And like I had to sit down and do the Peter Griffin for like a good, I mean, it felt like an hour, but it was probably only like 90 seconds. But it's hilarious. It's ridiculous. But when you're in an emergency situation, a year ago this time, we were facing all the wildfires out here. We had evacuation orders. We were without power for about a week. And for the first night that we were without power, I break out the Tank 3 Pro. I fired up, I think it wasn't, no, it was Minions. Yeah, it wasn't Despicable Me. It was the Minions movie. And I blasted it up on the wall behind our couch. And we snuggled up under blankets because it was really flippin' cold. And we watched a movie. And it was this little slice of kind of normal for my daughter that helped take the edge off of being in some really dangerous situations. Obviously, it got way worse when we had our evacuation orders, but that phone with a little solar power trickle charge during the day lasted me almost the entire wildfire scenario, multiple days. And it was a decent enough phone during all of that. But I'm not going to use that as my daily. It is a device I am so happy to have if ish goes down, if that makes sense. I've just spoiled part of the conclusion to my tank review. Oh, what's up? Holla at your boy. LaShawn, how you doing, buddy? He says, thank you, Juan. The tank just ain't it. See, but the thing is, one of the reasons why I like working with this company is like, they don't get pissy when I say things like, this is a terrible phone. Because it's a terrible phone. But it is an amazing internet-enabled appliance. So anyway, I'm repeating myself now. From Consumer Compute, yeah, that Tank X phone definitely brings a new terminology to the brick. To the brick phone. Again, it tests that notion, right? We all as nerds will say like, instead of having a big camera bulge, why don't you just fill out the back and give me more battery? Well, that's kind of what a tank is, only with a projector. So instead of having a projector lump on the front of your phone, it's just all full all the way back, and it's got a ridiculously big battery in there. Just a couple other things that have gone. Some of these have gone live. Some of these are on the Patreon, but I'm just sharing the feed from the Patreon here. I set up a little. I want to do this a little bit more, and I don't know that I'll be able to do this every week, but I want to try and find fun weekend geek projects. Literally something that you can do a day during the weekend. And so the first one I set up was for KiwiX or Kiwix. I think it's funny because their logo is a little kiwi bird. And there is no pronunciation guide or even video where they say their own company name. So I've been calling it KiwiX because you see a little kiwi bird and then it's KIWIX. So I got a reply from KiwiX official on YouTube. And you're like, we don't know how you got this KiwiX nonsense. Obviously, the name of our company is Kiwix. And like, it's obviously not obvious. I worry you don't know what the definition of obvious is. How could I have come to this conclusion when your mascot is a kiwi? Oh no, my bad, guys. Anyway, if I could tell you that with a modest investment in a decently sized USB flash drive, either a solid state drive or a thumb drive, that you could back up the entirety of human knowledge and make it accessible offline, that would be a fun little project, I think. And KiwiX is a program that helps you interface with content. So like you can back up all of Wikipedia, and then you can browse Wikipedia offline. And I think it's a really fun little project. So you set up a little flash drive. You don't need nearly as much storage as you think you might. Right now, I have Zim files. Zim is an archive of the entire database and website. I have Zim files for iFixit, so all of the iFixit repair guides. I have a Zim file for all of Wikipedia, including images in the Wikipedia posts. It won't go out to all of the Wikimedia, right? So when you open up a topic and there are other images that you can get linked to, it won't capture all of those, but it does have the images in the articles on Wikipedia. I have Khan Academy. It's older, but I have a backup of almost all of Khan Academy. And then what was the other? Oh, Project Gutenberg. So all of the open source ebooks, open source, all of the public domain ebooks, because I'm that much of a nerd. Open source books. All of the public domain books from Project Gutenberg I have as a library. All of that combined is less than 500 gig. So that's a lot, right? 500 gig of storage is no small chunk of change, but considering you go to Wikipedia and you think like, oh man, all of Wikipedia, it's only like 120 gig. So I thought that was a fun project to kick off. If there are other projects that you have that you think would be kind of fun, I think I am going to do one just talking about Jellyfin. If you're hosting your own media, I'm using Jellyfin mostly for ebooks, but it is maybe I might switch over from Plex for our movies and music too. I feel like that is exactly the kind of project you can knock out in a day, have something fun to play with, another use for all of your technology, and then you get something kind of fun out of it. Maybe it's only in an emergency, like, oh gosh, I need this repair guide, and society has fallen because of all the stupid AI stuff, but I still have my Zim file for iFixit, so I can still fix my phone and my computer because I have a backup on Kiwi X. I'm going to keep calling it Kiwi X. Moving right along. I also got a video out. This is public too. Xiaomi 17 Ultra Leica Edition is this really phone camera progress. And it's not a hit piece, but I do have to examine what the history of this phone line has represented. So for me, the Xiaomi Ultras are my most anticipated photography-focused devices of the year. Since the 12S Ultra, nothing has really completely displaced. I always feel like Xiaomi manages to have the best photography solution of every year since the 12S Ultra. So the 12S, the 13, the 14, the 15, and now with the 17 Ultra, I'm still inclined to give Xiaomi overall wins. But I do feel it is important to look at over the last couple years, all smartphone manufacturers have been demanding compromises. So part of that video is sort of like walking the history, my first experience with the 12S, also a little chatter about the Mi 11 Ultra, the Xiaomi Mi 11 before they got rid of the Mi branding on their phones, and then getting into what I think some of the pros and cons are on the 17 Ultra. So I'm gonna still have a full review and then a camera deep dive. I'm about 3/4 of the way shooting the camera deep dive. And this is also just a huge thank you to the folks over at Average Dad Tech because they hooked me up with a loaner for the Leica edition, which is pretty cool. And then lastly, I just thought this thing was cool. The company that I've been working with for these gimbals recently, Hohem, made an amazing smartphone gimbal and then made an amazing mirrorless gimbal that can also be used as a smartphone gimbal. Wireless remote capability, face tracking, AI capability. But they're also coming out with a little portable solid state drive. And it's designed for mobile first. So hooking into a phone and not messing up the use of a gimbal or a stabilizer because they make gimbals. They're making an SSD that plays nice between phone and stabilizer. So that sounds cool enough. Like it just plugs into the bottom of your phone, but with enough space that you can still mount it to some kind of tripod or stabilizer. But then they've added a whole bunch of other features that I think are really handy if you're trying to create content mobile. And this one was kind of fun. I had a question in here. Who was it? Was it Rashi? Raichi? I think it's Richi Siders, Rashi. I've completely forgotten how to pronounce your first name, but asked if like, hey, what is the performance, the write speed when you connect it to a phone? Can you use something like motion cam? So I did a test, and it was pretty interesting to see like our phones don't have memory card support anymore. And memory cards are plenty fast enough to record like stupid high quality 4K video. But plugging an SSD into a phone, can we expect good write performance so that you can write 4K video directly to the drive? Say you're using something like Blackmagic Camera. And can you write fast enough to do raw video if you wanted to do something like motion cam raw? Minutes of that video can be hundreds of gigs of storage. So I ended up doing a test with my Pixel 10 Pro XL with 12-bit RAW enabled, and I put my results in that article on patreon.com/somegadgetguy. So anyway, it's good times. Oh, Georgie saying, I patiently waiting for the 17 Ultra deep dive. I am working on it. I promise I'm working on it. It's just with everything that happened in life after CES, I got buried, and I'm digging myself out. Like, I'm getting back to normal. I am going to get this stuff out there. But I promised you all, I also wanted to spend some time doing some camera deep dives on like mid-ranger phones too. So I'm shooting ahead on a couple different devices. One of them's under embargo and I can't talk about it yet. But you know, like I did the OnePlus 15 and I kind of showed what some of the camera tech looked like on that. I still need to revisit the Pixel 10 Pro XL and talk about what the sort of longer term experience has been, because I've still been really disappointed in that. Future, it's here. The Xiaomi dude, you need to do a best settings video. You know, that's not a bad idea. So what I used to do on Sony's, because I felt like that was actually an educational benefit, was I would break down all the different Sony camera apps and then talk about like, well, for this kind of situation, I like to do this, or you can also do that, or you can do a rack focus, you know, explain what all those different modes were. You know, I really don't think I've done anything like that on a Xiaomi since like the 12S or the Mi 11 Ultra. It's been like 5 generations of phone. I think like that might not be such a bad idea. I'm gonna have to play with that. Yeah, for sure. And Future, it's here. I wondered the same thing, but our phone write speed's fast enough to do 4K video and also connect to a wireless mic. I guess you'll just need to read the article on patreon.com/somegadgetguy. And Jimmy Fire Dragon, can't believe we're already 6 generations into Xiaomi's Ultra line. So we had the Mi 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17. Yeah, 6. In 6 generations of phone, they've completely eclipsed any American-facing device as a photography solution, and I've pretty much given up on all of them. So, we still have a show proper to do. Everything that we're going to be talking about will be available on this week's show notes. The housekeeping, all of the article links, obviously the audio version, as after I do the mix down, the audio version and the video version here from YouTube, somegadgetguy.com. And the cleaned up version of the podcast, where I really try to cut out all the dead air and me slurping coffee and all that stuff, should be available shortly after on patreon.com/somegadgetguy. So I'm going to jump into this one. This is an early finding, and I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on it. I'm very curious, and I'm going to preface this up front. How do we feel about nations, states, international committees, governments starting to police the organization of social media sites? Drop a comment here in the chat. I'm going to read through the top of this. I'm not posting a link to any of the editorials. My link is taking you directly to the European Commission's press release. So this is Commission preliminarily finds TikTok's addictive design in breach of the Digital Services Act. The European Commission preliminarily found TikTok in breach of the Digital Services Act for its addictive design. Later, the Commission investigation preliminarily indicates that TikTok did not adequately assess how these addictive features could harm the physical and mental well-being of its users, including minors and vulnerable adults. Risk mitigation measures. TikTok seems to fail to implement reasonable, proportionate, and effective measures to mitigate risks stemming from its addictive design. At this stage, the Commission considers that TikTok needs to change the basic design of its service, for instance, by disabling key addictive features such as infinite scroll over time, implementing effective screen time breaks, including during the night, and adapting its recommender system. These preliminary findings do not prejudge the outcome of the investigation. So, we've been talking about social media for years on this podcast. Folks in this chat have heard me ramble on about social media forever. But we've been complaining a lot recently about how algorithms separate content creators from their audience. They create this kind of pressure cooker environment, and they are not dissimilar from gambling mechanics that I also have major problems with in video games. A social media algorithm can change its content and its feeding system on the fly per user. And we've acknowledged, like in Vegas, if you're at a slot machine, it is illegal to change the payout of a slot machine to try and keep someone addicted to that slot machine and really like work their dopamine receptors and all that other stuff. I'm not against the idea of regulating any system that utilizes this kind of reward mechanism have to follow similar regulatory practices as slot machines in Vegas. A physical slot machine can't keep changing its payouts, its odds, its software, its algorithms to target one individual user. And I'm not necessarily opposed to social media being handled the same way. In fact, I feel like, well, yes, TikTok has proven to be one of the more successful agents in this like crazy loop, infinite scroll, short form bursts of video kinds of content that I still don't understand because it drives me crazy. And it's where I know I'm definitely atypical neurodivergent because it not only doesn't work on me, it makes me aggravated and frustrated and like anxious whenever I'm scrolling like YouTube shorts. It makes me want to smash whatever computer I'm using. This is also why I'm so bad at making short form content. I do not understand it at all. I really don't. I can't wrap up any. See, I'm already rambling on this topic that we weren't going to spend a lot of time on. I always go long winded and I always go long form. So I kind of feel like we're starting to describe politically the negative aspects of social media. I feel we're probably 10 years too late in attempting to regulate this industry. I kind of feel we've been seeing the impact and the damage done by this manipulation of data, this manipulation of the flow of information. And we keep kind of passing this off like, you know, if things keep getting worse, we're going to have to start considering the possibility of maybe acknowledging the thought of almost regulating this space. So you guys be careful over there in social media land. And there have been numerous headlines out recently that I haven't put into podcasts, I haven't put into the show notes, but it's like yet another, oh, we're examining maybe doing something about it. Oh, you know, we're giving them a stern warning to change their business practices. And at some point, like, you just gotta jump. You just gotta do something to rein this stuff in. And I think what I'm most disappointed with in the sphere of influencers and techies were all the people who were so passionate and just so concerned about First Amendment issues on social media. And, oh, if you deplatform, then you're just as bad. And, oh, to fight bad information, you just need to put out good information. And now all of these social media platforms are totally kowtowing to one end of the political spectrum and deplatforming people on the opposite side. So now we're not concerned about deplatforming because deplatforming works. when you can interrupt one side's part of the conversation. Just, we weren't upset about deplatforming people critical of fascism. So that's where we're at right now. Okay, cool. I just think it's also interesting timing that the EU is like, oh, now that there's a flavor of TikTok that's wholly operated by like American interests, it probably needs more regulation. Yeah, John Gow. Most parents are not well equipped to help their kids navigate social media, so thumbs up from me. I'm talking to a therapist that works with my daughter's school, and I'm like actually moving up the food chain at her little. She works for this group of therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists, and I'm trying to work with them. They've started doing these like parent um, and what would you call them, modules or parent educational platform things. They've been trying to do these workshops where they can explain some of the issues with like online gaming for kids, like little kids that are all super into Roblox, and also how that can contribute to things like bullying. It can contribute to harassment, like all these issues that I don't feel parents fully understand. They know all their friends are on the Roblox, so they give their kids more Robux to go Roblox, and then for some reason all their kids are super depressed now. So that is, I think, very valuable work. But I approached them saying, hey, I feel there are three significant issues with games and content and interactions for children. I also feel there are viable issues for adults too, but if you're a legal adult, I can't nanny you, but hopefully I can give good information to parents so that hopefully their kids don't fall prey to these specific issues. And I feel like parents are only tangentially aware of content warnings, right? So, like explicit lyrics on albums, ratings on movies, ratings on video games. But a rating on a video game only seriously applies to the content of the writing and the depictions of the violence in the game. So that's good. I think parents should have an understanding of that. But I don't think most parents understand that if something's rated E for everyone, that they can get into online interactions that are not a part of the ratings. Or T for teen, right? And then they get into online interactions with other players, and those are not subject to the same ratings. There's no like community guide to make sure that interactions between players remain T for teen. And then my last component is monetization. And this is the hardest thing to explain to a parent. They do not get it. I posted like that video talking about Balatro. Videos about Balatro have been sort of shadow banned because it's like gambling. You play poker hands, and that's like gambling. But YouTube doesn't have any problems with videos about Marvel Future Fight, where actual gambling mechanics get built into every single character. So if you want to upgrade Captain America's shield, you don't just get 100 gold and 100 shield points, and then you can upgrade the shield. No, you get tons of gold and tons of shield points, and then you take some of those points and you throw them into a slot machine. And it's a literal random number generator. You might throw, 10 gold and 10 points and get the whole upgrade. And boy, doesn't that feel good. Your dopamine just dropped. But you might throw 10 points and 10 gold and only get 5% of your upgrade. So spin again. Oh, this time you got 20% of your upgrade. Spin again, and you see, like, that is a literal slot machine. There are over 200 playable characters in Marvel Future Fight. Every attack, every uniform, every skin and piece of equipment, every cosmic gem, every jewel, every upgrade, every tier is built on systems of gambling to get that one character leveled up to a higher level. Over 200 characters need to be handled that way. And so all of that sounds ridiculous and obtuse, and even just me simplifying it, it is like I'm not explaining how crazy, complicated, and exhausting all of these mechanics are. But there's no way a parent could ever just be like, oh, I totally understand what my kid's into. Oh, cosmic gems and oh, this and oh, they've got to get, character bios and all this other stuff. Like, no, there's no way they'd ever be able to figure it out. So I'm talking to a group of psychiatrists to see if there's not like one last part that we can add to some of these modules, some of these components to tell parents like, this is actually making your kids depressed. They grind for hours and hours and hours and hours in these kinds of games to accrue these materials, throw them into wood chippers, and then if they don't get what they want, they could either go back and grind for weeks again, or, well, there's a little upgrade pack. If you just spend $100, you can get your gems and your jewels and your gold and your bios and your machine bits, and then you can spend some more. So it's not a loot box. You didn't buy a loot box, but you did buy more materials to throw into the wood chipper for your random spin so you can upgrade your Captain America. And don't worry, because the game is T for teen. So there's a little spicy language, but there's no boobies. What are we doing? We're literally saddling kids with a family-friendly franchise and teaching them slot machine payouts. But we're so worried. Oh, won't someone think of the children? Oh man. All right, there's a bunch of comments here. Hold on. I knew like me kind of rambling on this would spur some stuff. From JGJ, how much of these addictive mechanics are on the US alternatives like YouTube Shorts, Snapchat, Reels, even if TikTok got banned as it was supposed to before federal intervention? Yes, absolutely. All of them. If the EU starts digging in on TikTok, because I feel like they're digging in on TikTok because TikTok is in a vulnerable position right now, right? They've like parts of TikTok are being managed by other interests. There's a whole bunch of pressure on how much money has been generated to create this new business entity. Oracle has so much tied up in training the future algorithm to only spout right-wing fascist nonsense. Like, now is the right time to pick at TikTok. But if they get a little wedge there where they can say, hey, addictive mechanics in these types of platforms are bad, also Facebook, also YouTube, I feel like that's the launch point. From Consumer Compute, we regulate candy and sugar for kids with labels, limits, and parental controls instead of banning it outright. TikTok should be treated the same way. The real issue isn't the app existing, it's unlimited hours and algorithms designed to keep minors scrolling with no guardrails. Smart time limits and stronger parent tools would make more sense than pretending self-control alone will fix a system built to be addictive. Only, my opinion, this is from someone who's worked in the educational field for over 25 years. So my issue, I completely agree with you. I really do feel most of the time it should be up to the parent's discretion for what kinds of entertainment and services are correct for their kids. Unfortunately, if you're my age or younger, you've been trained in these systems too. I have friends who are parents who never turned off the sync my photos with Facebook. Well, because they need to keep up with what their family and friends are doing. And, they take a photo and they want their family and friends to see it. And I have to block them on other social media platforms because it's just an unending stream of like all their kids. And they've never considered their own behavior. They've never limited their own access to social media. And their phone is just a hose at maximum pressure, just sort of farting out whatever content they capture. I had this one friend, before I completely shut off Facebook for myself, I had this one friend from college, and it was literally like she was taking hundreds of photos of her new baby every day. And I totally respect, like, she had a difficult pregnancy. This was like multiple miscarriages. This was like a really, a really important life event. A kid is always a really important life event. But for her, there was a high emotional issue compounding this. But like hundreds. Baby taking a nap, photo, 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 and all of them batch uploading to Facebook. So if this is how we've conditioned the consumer experience for people in their 40s and 30s, what hope do kids have getting a good education on what these systems can do that's not going to come from their parents? It just can't. We don't have tech education. We have tech marketing that just lets people know what tech is going to do to them or what tech is going to exist for them to buy. We are not teaching the parents appropriately to be able to pass on generational knowledge to their kids. So this is what I really like, is that this Digital Services Act isn't saying we're going to ban TikTok. We're saying TikTok should follow these safety protocols, these guidelines. We're going to start with kids. We're going to look at addictive behavior. We're going to look at how this platform manipulates users and alters the flow of information, which is bad for societies. And if they don't comply with some of our suggestions on these guardrails, they'll probably get fines. That's the series of events as I understand it so far. So I don't think anyone's gotten to a let's ban TikTok. The only people who have said let's ban TikTok are the people in the Trump administration. When TikTok was owned more outright by ByteDance, they were the ones saying let's ban TikTok. But now that they own it, oh, well, let's use TikTok as a weapon of propaganda. So I think the EU has a vested interest in making sure that weaponized misinformation doesn't leak out of the United States like so much excrement. Again, it's like the messaging needs to be very clear. I am not linking to someone's editorial about the EU doing this. And I've obviously shared my opinions on this, so I've editorialized it enough, but I would really appreciate if you're going through my show notes, go read the EU press release. It's like 5 paragraphs. Like, if you're really concerned about what might happen with government oversight over social media, don't listen to someone say, well, I think it's going to be bad, and what should we do? What if they ban it? Because that's not what they're saying. They're saying we want guardrails, and we're investigating how we're going to get them, and if the companies don't give us the guardrails, we'll have to figure out an appropriate punishment. And in no point are they saying, we need to remove TikTok from the internet. Because that's what right-wingers are going to say. They're going too far. Like all of the countries that are now investigating like Twitter, right? Elon Musk is freaking out. I think Spain just did another like internal investigation. Like your platform was creating and sharing images of child abuse. Oh, but Spain investigating us. That's going too far. See, this is what happens when you let billionaires convince normal people. Oh, you shouldn't talk about politics. No one wants to talk about politics. Politics is messy, and that's just bad. Anyway, Chris Pollard, I missed the internet in the late 90s when it was mostly just other friendly nerds. Met some great people online back then when it wasn't political. Oh, it was always political. I started on ARPANET. You know what the funding of ARPANET looked like? It was very political. And then we got the internet. And do you know how you got dial-up and the internet and the consumer internet? Was a lot of politics. Even when it was just a bunch of friendly nerds, we were talking about things like the government trying to ban encryption. Oh, well, you've got nothing to hide. Why do you need your data to be encrypted? Always political. Always political. Anyone who was saying like, oh, I liked it before the politics, then you just weren't paying attention. And you were happy to let other people make decisions for you. I'm not picking on you, Chris, but like the history of this is hilarious. Because it's basically rich people telling poorer people or middle class people, don't pay attention to my boot stomping on your neck. I want all the wealth. I want to hoard all the resources. I want all the special privileges. I want to be able to commit crimes and not get thrown in jail. And you have to follow the rules. So don't pay attention to me doing this stuff. That's politics. And it's always been that way. Yeah, from Screen on Time. This is great to hear. Children need to be guided, but parents don't know how. Again, the systems are purposely obtuse for exhausted parents to be like, here, have a tablet, just be quiet and go do something else. And, the economy isn't helping that either. So it's pretty great. It's pretty great. Oh, Average Dad, your ears must have been burning because we were mentioning you while I was doing my housekeeping. Average Dad saying, hey, buddy. Average Dad Official, again, a huge shout out. Thank you for the loaner on that Xiaomi 17 Ultra. We'll chat soon. I really want to talk. Maybe some channel collabs or some fun conversations on stuff. It's pretty great. I'm way behind on this chat. You guys do have like quite a bit of really solid comments here. So Colin Murphy, let me finish with Colin, and then we have to move on to the next topics here. I actually don't have a lot of news block news. We really got to get to some gadget chat. There's some really fun gadget chat in here. Colin Murphy saying it's not the children that need nannying. At least the children still have the common sense they were born with. This cannot be said about a lot of adults, especially those adults with influence. I wholly, completely agree. If we could count on parents making informed decisions on the interactions that they set up for their kids, maybe I would be a bit more concerned about the EU stomping in. There's a lot about the EU Commission and the regulatory agencies throughout the EU that give me pause, give me concern. This is not one of them because I feel we've gotten to a breaking point where the proliferation of data on social media has convinced a significant enough chunk of our voting population to disagree and argue about what is real in our society right now that I can't trust that grown-ups are doing a good job of handing that information over to kids in a way that will benefit the kids and also enrich society. I'm not running for any kind of public office. All right, moving on. I already mentioned, it was funny after the Super Bowl commercials that there was an increase in searches for how to cancel a Ring subscription. But before then, before the Super Bowl, last week was actually kind of a bloodbath on the stock market for a lot of tech companies. This is coming by way of CNBC, written up by Kai Nicole Schwartz. Amazon leads big tech's $1 trillion wipeout as AI bubble fears ignite sell-off. The other one that I thought was kind of funny, there was a Coinbase commercial, which I think was just lyrics to a Backstreet Boys song and then Coinbase. Like, you spent probably millions of dollars for that Super Bowl commercial to do Backstreet Boy lyrics and then, buy crypto. After crypto last week had a bloodbath sell-off. Ethereum just tanked. And what? Someone look it up for me in the chat. Someone let me know. What was it? Bitcoin fell from over 100,000 to what, under 70? And this is on top of all of the big tech bubble stock valuations. Also, finding these little market corrections. $1 trillion of value just vanished from the stock market, which means these companies don't actually represent value in any kind of traditional sense. It's all just fake money. And it feels increasingly like this is yet another rug pull where we keep inflating this market so that rich people can keep getting richer, and they'll pull their money out. They'll probably have some insider trading to benefit from. They'll pull their money out, and then all the poor people will be stuck holding the bag, right? So again, another article I'd just like you to kind of follow up on. I don't believe AI in any way is a viable business model, and it will not be sustainable. And again, even investors are starting to get a bit shaky on this. So anything that requires massive data center compute capabilities like crypto, NFTs, AI, we keep going through this boom bust cycle. From like hyping up and overvaluing VR to hyping up and overvaluing GPU use for crypto, to hyping up and overvaluing NFTs, to now hyping up and overvaluing massive data center infrastructure investment. Like, I think it's between Facebook, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, we're looking at $700 billion of planned investment. Google is saying their Gemini won't really be firing on all cylinders. It won't really be as good as they want it to be unless they can increase their compute performance 1,000 times what they currently have over the next 4 years. Do you see a new chip coming to servers that's going to be 1,000 times more powerful in the next 4 years? I don't think that's going to happen. So what do they need to do? They need to, over the next 4 years, scrap all of the hardware that's currently in data centers and make a whole bunch more data centers. And then they'll have 1,000 times the compute power so that they can make the AI work the way they want it to. Because it's not really doing what they need it to do yet. But don't worry, in another 4 or 5 years, it'll be really good. It'll really do what you want. So that's all just nonsense. Like what business do you invest in? You put your money in and say, that's the model. I think that's going places. I really think you've got a good plan. I'm going to see a return on my investment. This is golden. If someone just pitched that idea to you, you would laugh or slap them in the face and then laugh. But there would be laughing involved, and not of a nice, I'm laughing with you, like the really critical, sardonic, bitter, acid, I'm laughing at you because you're so stupid. But for some reason, rich people can just keep circling their money, where Nvidia can dump $100 billion into a company, and then that company says, oh, this $100 billion we just got from Nvidia, well, what we need to do is invest in more hardware. So that $100 billion is going to go right back to Nvidia. That's great. From Mountain Dew Lou, I think you just summed it up even better. It's a bunch of caca. From Ripso404, I think you underestimate how many people are using AI. I'm not at all. Even my mom is using it. She's paying ChatGPT monthly. Every job interview I've had, they've asked me about using AI. So I'm not. Lots of people are. Microsoft is going to post that subscriptions for AI have skyrocketed because they just stitched AI into all of the Microsoft Office suite. Should you use it? No. It's miserable in Excel and it's barely useful in like Word, not for anything that I would ever want to do in Word. And in fact, even when it comes to things like summarizing content, I'll go to I'll go to like a locally, I'll use my Wanbot, anywhere anywhere LLM, and GPT for all. And I feel like those actually do a much better job of summarizing because I can pick what models I want to use for what aspect. Doing it in Word doesn't make it doesn't do it better. So I have some sense, but a lot of what you're describing are these inflated numbers where Google will say like, oh, well, now we've got all these people using the Gemini subscriptions. No, they're still just kind of paying for more cloud storage and you tacked on AI services. Oh, so many people are using AI for search. No, they went to the search field and they searched on Google and then they got an AI search result. So that's not people seeking out AI. So as to people like your mom who are actively paying for ChatGPT and using ChatGPT, we know for a fact there are not enough of those people who are paying enough for ChatGPT to survive. And how do we know this? Because even last week we were talking about how OpenAI ended the first month of 2026 over $10 billion in the red. So your mom's subscription is not paying for its use. She is costing them money. And what are we looking at them to shore up their financials? Incorporating advertising into their AI models. So all of this. In fact, the more people that use cloud and data center AI, the worse it gets for this to be a sustainable business model. That's why you've got chuckleheads at Google saying, oh, if we just 1000x our compute performance, then we'll really, because if they want people to really use data center AI at scale, that's part of the increase in consumption Literally, the how much compute work can we put through our data centers? Not enough to fulfill everyone using AI. So if we want it to be successful like we're saying it will be, we need to massively scale. But then it also still doesn't cost, I mean, it still doesn't pay for itself. So your subscription would have to be redonkulously expensive. None of this is gonna play out. None of this is gonna work. But you train the models and you run them locally, you get really cool stuff. So we need to start kind of like pivoting some of these consumer experiences where, like, yeah, you can have these kind of open-ended conversations with ChatGPT. You could also do that from the little NPU in your laptop. Or you could do that from the little NPU in your laptop and then have that access everything you've ever written. I have every document, article, video script I've ever written. And I've got it running on a little 12th gen Core i7 laptop. And it's not fast. It would actually be faster if I moved it over to my my Microsoft Surface. But I can have sort of a back and forth, spitballing ideas, summarizing articles, kind of conversation, and that thing knows 15 years of my writing. And that is valuable to me. But this notion that, like, what Amazon and Google and Microsoft are doing, they're fudging their numbers. This isn't people seeking it out and paying for it in a way that generates profit. This is people playing with it and using it. And especially when they're generating images and generating video, that is massive compute use that they're not profiting off of, which is why OpenAI is doing another round of funding where they're going to be, the valuation they're looking for is like $830 billion valuation when they've generated what? A couple billion in revenue, and they're massively in the hole. First month of 2026, they are $10 billion in the red. And there's 11 more months to go. It's great. AI poopification. Oh, it's so fun. From Arvind. Yes, Gemini comes bundled with my Google One subscription. So, Microsoft and Copilot are so convincing and so good. The performance is so great. I would be so blown away. I literally, in firing up, because I still manage my email and Outlook when I'm on my workstation here, but I'm thinking of moving over to Thunderbird across all my different various gadgets. I just got a pop-up. So they served me an ad, which pissed me off because I am a paying customer for Microsoft Office. But I forced them to put me back on an Office Classic subscription. I had to threaten to cancel my my Office subscription, so that I could get rid of the AI stuff. And I'm happy it's gone. There's no more of this stupid junk in my Word documents or these prompt fields in Excel. I'm telling you it's better. And if you don't want it and you don't want to pay for it, go to LibreOffice. I'm telling you it's better. But I got a little pop-up ad in Outlook saying, oh, hey, you should go back to an AI subscription and we'll cut 50% off the price difference between them, because they want the numbers. Right now, they're happy to lose money so they can go to shareholders and say, look, millions more people signed up for Office with Copilot. And I'm telling you that's a lie. Most of those people were just apathetic. Oh, Microsoft is raising prices again. I guess we just have to eat another $20 or $40 a year on this subscription. All right, everything's just getting more expensive. And they didn't look to see that they could roll back to a classic subscription and save that cash. That's how Microsoft is going to go and turn to shareholders and say, look at all this interest in AI. More people are out there. It's so popular. And it's a lie. It is a lie. It is a rug pull investor scam. And it will be until we see a more significant cratering in this market. Again, that's why it's fueling all of this chatter, like a bunch of these little community shops coming up to refurb old laptops and desktops, get them into schools. My daughter's school laptop was running Ubuntu. Like, You can all be snarky and cynical, like, oh, it's really going to be the year for Linux. Except for the fact, like, it's never been more popular in gaming. We're going to talk about Steam Machine later in this. That's kind of breaking my heart a little bit. But there's so many things that we can do now to move people over into products and computers and systems and keep them running longer at a better performance level. You take Windows 10 era hardware and slap Ubuntu on it, and it's flippin' awesome. My daughter's laptop is my over 10-year-old Razer gaming laptop. And let me tell you, that is not a machine I would want to rock on the daily anymore, but it's an order of magnitude more powerful than her school laptop. So whatever we consider a consumer level computing experience, if you bought something silly 10 years ago, it's still more powerful than a current era consumer grade, Chromebook grade computing experience. So for all the people like, oh, well, it'll just be like Nvidia is going to make you stream your games. Sure. If you roll over, yeah. Or you could just do some other stuff and have fun and keep your local compute power, even in an era of terrible component pricing. We just got to run stuff longer. But there's no way I'm going to give Nvidia money for 5080 performance when my 4070 Ti is doing just fine. I did that one backwards. I was going to mute my mic and then throw up the next article, but I threw up the next article and then sniffed really loudly and then muted my mic. Let's switch gears. Oh, I do want to do this last one here. Mountain Dew Lou. I had my dad try LibreOffice. I'm going to move him off of Windows 11 to Zorin OS. Mountain Dew Lou, let me know what he says. I've actually had quite a bit of success with things like handing someone a Steam Deck and then not talking about Linux. But this is a gaming PC, isn't this amazing? And then, like I said, like my daughter really got into LibreOffice. She's never used Windows, she's never used Mac OS, but she likes to write in LibreOffice. So again, these little things, like if you just don't make a big deal out of it and you just kind of let people go with it, I think we could be fielding even more success as we go through these kinds of transitions. There's an opportunity here for us to be those kinds of evangelists for better, more reasonable longevity in computing. Sorry, I already said this, but Arvind also has another one here. I got my 8-year-old laptop collecting dust without without SDD. Oh, without a spinning disk drive. Sorry, abbreviations hurt my brain. And working against Snappy just by ditching Windows 11 and going Linux Mint, it just breathed new life into my Intel 8th gen processor. So I've got my Huawei. I've got my old MateBook, which is an Intel 8th gen, and it qualified for the upgrade to Windows 11, but I think I'm going to scrap it. I think I'm going to go, I think, it's funny you said Mint. I think I'm going to put Mint on that and start using that as like a test machine for some of my Linux stuff. Oh, everyone say hey to my Aunt Kathy. Aunt Kathy. So my relatives had like a crazy Super Bowl pool, and I did not participate because I am not savvy with the football these days. Always enjoy your show. Caught the end now as we were in North Carolina visiting Daniel and Angie. Oh, I hope they're doing well. And again, give them my love. I don't get to see you guys as often as I'd like to. So my Aunt Kathy is good people. Everyone say, hey, Aunt Kathy. All right, short one here. This one coming by way of Gizmodo, written up by James Pero. The College Board is banning students from using smart glasses during the SATs. Smart glasses are the ultimate cheating tool, and colleges know it. And I love that they're showing kind of a hipster-looking dude wearing some Evan realities. So it's not, I think this is hilarious. Like, if it were like Facebook glasses, well, we wouldn't want to put, Ray-Bans in the image of an article because that wouldn't be good for Facebook. So we're going to take one of the smallest boutique smart glasses manufacturers on the planet. They just say, oh, yeah, so smart glasses are real bad guys. Look at these Evan realities. Students are going to cheat with them and do bad things. Like, of course, of course. But I feel like this one's just kind of appropriate. If you have an optical image system that can put out, data and you can like control it with a ring and go through your notes and stuff and like kids are always going to look for any advantage they can get. Kids, college, anyone, humans are going to look for any advantage that they can get. I think, especially once we start getting into like collegiate level classes, and this is not 100% across the board. Obviously, there are lots of situations where we should carve out exceptions. Um, but I really feel a major problem facing society are people who are good problem identifiers and people who are good at researching applicable information. And I think for a lot of industries, it makes way less sense to have someone brute force memorize all the facts of their industry. And instead, we should be looking at like, yeah, you can have a computer or you can have like smart glasses, you can have reference, notes, something. All of our tests are going to be open book in some way, but you've got to be able to categorize, filter, access the correct pieces of information to get to the conclusion. I feel we live in a data enabled society that's kind of rich content enough. There are very few times where I'm so caught up in I have to memorize all of these bits and pieces for me to get my work done. But every problem I run into, I'm running over to say like, oh, so this isn't working and I need to do this and I'm getting this kind of error message. So let me search this. And now I've got to be able to find the correct solution for the problem that I'm actually facing. So I feel like education needs kind of a reform for teaching people like, yeah, you have grade schoolers and your multiplication times tables, right? I get where there's all of this new math in creating the logic of understanding the problem and how to get to the solution, but also if I'm sitting at a stoplight and I yell out, "Hey Lex, what's 7 times 5?" I just need her to be able to tell me what's 7 times 5. Like, yes, there's going to be the brute force memorization for some things just to make you a functional member of society. But I honestly think at some point we need to examine what is it that we're trying to achieve? Why are we testing this knowledge? And what is the outcome that we expect from someone utilizing this information to complete a task? That doesn't work for like a doctor. I need a doctor to just know stuff. But that doctor is also going to research a lot of stuff too. So I think we need to find the bits and pieces that make sense. For right now, administrators, the way these tests are constructed, the way the knowledge is sort of interacted with, the way the information is interacted with, yeah, it makes total sense that we'd be banning optical systems from college tests. I think that just makes sense. Yeah, Mountain Dew Lou. Yeah, let me know. He says, I'll let you know. And I also never knew it was on Windows. I installed it and I told him to keep using it. I got him an 8 terabyte external hard drive so we can back up all of his 15 plus years of Microsoft Office stuff over and move him over. I think it's a fun exchange. And I think a lot of people don't know enough to understand the differences anymore. It's kind of like when I rolled my grandparents from Internet Explorer over to Firefox, and all I did was change the icon for Firefox to Internet Explorer, and they loved it. Oh, this new Internet Explorer update is so much better, and we don't have all those toolbars from things that we keep clicking on in our emails. He's like, yeah, I know. This new IE is pretty great. Moving right along. Getting into the gadget block, we're 10:20 in the AM here in Southern California. The politics block went way long. So we've been complaining about RAM. Well, wouldn't you know it, this is also affecting OpenAI. So their business models are broken no matter what we're talking about, if it's data center or accessories. This is written up by Rohail Salim. I've mispronounced her first name, I'm sure. WCCF Tech, OpenAI's, quote, sweet pea earbuds to be sold under the consumer name Dime, now expected to chronically underdeliver on the hype. OpenAI is chomping at the proverbial bit to bring its first consumer AI device bearing the internal codename Sweet Pea to the market by the second half of 2026. However, the device is now expected to chronically underdeliver on its promised potential if the latest tidbit from a source pans out. This is from Apple Leaker over on Twitter. OpenAI's big new thing will be an AI AirPods clone that will be a huge flop. I don't see it having much utility over headphones connected to ChatGPT voice mode. And what's funny is that the construction of these earbuds are also being impacted by all of the component manufacturing that OpenAI is causing pressure on these markets, like RAM and system components and silicon. They are actually having issues fulfilling all of the bits and pieces that need to go into their hardware product because their data center strategy is ruthlessly stupid speculation on the component market. So triple trouble there. It's hilarious. We mentioned this briefly. Someone brought it up in a podcast, or was it? It might have been on Sam's show. I can't remember. But just talking about how, like, what we put into a pair of headphones, it's so stupid. We put into a pair of glasses. We're trying to convince consumers that there's like a magic dude in your glasses that interacts with you and does the AI. We're trying to convince people like the AI lives in the earbuds. And all of these are just portals or conduits to the lump of compute power in your pocket. It's why I'm not super bullish on the idea that we're gonna get rid of the smartphone anytime soon. We have this brick of compute power, some bricks bigger than others, and then that compute power goes to glasses or it goes to earbuds. But I think we've done such a miserably bad job of educating consumers on how all this stuff works. I fear some people are starting to, I don't know what's the word that I'm trying to find. They're starting to do, you know, when we do that thing where we pick up a gadget, we give it a personality, like we treat it like it's a living thing, even though it's not. I fear a lot of people are starting to like do that with their glasses if they have Facebook Ray-Bans, right? It's that they're, because that's the accessory that they interact with, they're starting to imbue that with the personality of the system that they're using. But it's really just compute power on the phone talking to a data center. I'd really hope that consumers were smart enough to know that the Sweet Pea earbuds from OpenAI don't do anything. They're literally just the microphones and speakers that funnel the information to your phone so that you can interact with ChatGPT. ChatGPT isn't even on your phone to a high level. It's talking to a server. So ChatGPT lives somewhere over there in the cloud, and these earbuds are literally only funneling the audio to your device to then go up to the cloud. Like, it is so stupid to try and brand that experience at the hardware level, at the earbud level. Any pair of headphones should be able to enact some kind of assistant mode, and then that can have your interaction with your AI of choice. I think you should try using a local AI on your phone. It's pretty fun. I had to pull this article up. This is I've got two articles here from GSM Arena just talking about future hardware updates and new phones and gadgets coming out. I had to bring this one up. I don't even know who wrote this article. It doesn't have a byline on it. I'm looking. Oh, from Roe. Sorry, it was right next to the date, but it's literally just RO. So Roe wrote this up. And I'm not picking on Roe, and I'm not picking on GSM Arena. I am a little bit. Anything that makes me feel like I have to defend Samsung makes me want to throw up in my mouth. Like in a really bad way. Like there's bile and acid, and it's a physiological response. It's a really ugly organic biological response, how much I despise Samsung, so that if you make me have to defend them, it's horrific mental and physical conflict of flames on the side of my face. Sorry, I gilded that lily way too much. From GSM Arena, written up by Rowe, Samsung is upgrading the Galaxy S26 series wireless charging, but skimps on the magnets again. I am so tired of defining all of our future smartphone mounting and accessory experiences by Apple MagSafe. It's stupid. There's a fun novelty like, oh, I can like stick a cooler on the back of my phone, or oh, look, there's a charge pad that is so much more expensive than a USB-C cable and charges so much slower than a cabled fast charging. But now I can just pop it onto the windshield of my car and it trickle charges while the sun is hitting my windshield and cooking my phone. But I don't care about better battery tech or faster charging or running my phone cooler because I'll replace my phone in 2 years. But I really care that it gets 7 years of software updates, even though the hardware won't last 2 summers in Southern California. This is such a nothing burger to criticize Samsung about. There is so much stupid stuff that Samsung does that deserves actual scrutiny. How they do business with their customers, how they do business with their suppliers, their hardware partners, this weird relationship, this kind of incestuous relationship that they have with Google, where they're at once supplying Google with stuff and then getting early access to builds of Android, but also competing against Google and coming up with their own solutions to, divert people away from Google products and services. There's so much. Price fixing. They're going to be engaging in not really, but manipulating the manufacturing of their products. So instead of meeting demand for RAM and drives, they're going to end SATA SSDs. They're going to scale back on solid state drive production, and they're scaling back on RAM so that all of the prices will go up and they can make more money. Samsung is a viciously awful corporation. They're really bad. But I'm looking at a Galaxy S26 Ultra knowing that it is going to be functionally nearly identical to the S25 Ultra, and their big hook this year is that it's going to have a privacy screen filter built in. Cool. I can't care, but I guess that's the hook. Not improving camera performance, not, replacing lost features on the S Pen. Sure. That's what we're going to do. Not putting the magnets into the phone means nothing to me. I am never the person who's going to take my $1,400 Ultra phone where I want the S Pen capabilities that the magnets can get in the way of the S Pen, that can interrupt. It takes a lot of engineering to get magnetic interfaces built around fine point touch control pen interactions. I'll keep the S Pen. I like having a stylus on my tablets. I like having stylus support on my phones. I wish more phones had this. But I'm not going to take my $1,400 phone out naked. Okay? So if I put a case on a phone with MagSafe magnets, the case still needs to have MagSafe magnets. So why are we this upset? Oh God, S26 Ultra. I'm not upset that it's virtually identical to the S25 and the S24. Oh, Samsung just flops again. They just fail because they won't put in Apple MagSafe magnets. That's the criticism? It's not that they've been selling you the same phone since 2020. Is that they didn't make their phone more compatible with crappy Apple accessories? That's what we're upset about? You're making me defend Samsung keeping a feature that is actually functionally different from 90% of the other phones out on the market. Having stylus, fine point, document, work, that stylus is a critical differentiating feature for an Ultra phone, and we're gonna piss on magnets for MagSafe when you'd still need to buy a case with magnets to use it if you put your phone in a case? I don't have nice things to say about the tech influencers that are going to use that as their gotcha so that Apple can win in a comparison against an iPhone Pro versus a Galaxy Ultra. Oh, but guys, I mean, what are you going to do? I'm going to use my phone naked. I ain't got on magnets. I can't even stick this Samsung to the windshield of my car. Can't even do it. Just game over, guys. We're like, okay. You made me defend Samsung. And that really drives me crazy. What you could also do is buy a OnePlus. So like, here's my OnePlus 13. I need to get a new screen protector for it. But my OnePlus 13 doesn't have magnets in the phone. But I've never used my OnePlus 13 naked. And the case, the really nice like carbon fiber, Armand, whatever case this is, has magnets built into it. And I can do all the MagSafe-y things, including using it with the new Clicks Power Keyboard. And the magnets in the case are strong enough to hold the phone with some pretty violent shaking. I did this with the OnePlus 15 when I was in Vegas, and I got to go hands-on with the Clicks Power Keyboard, and it worked great. Michael Fisher actually said, like, I don't know if that's going to work, but we can try. And then he stuck it to the back of the phone, and it was rock solid because the magnets are in the case. So it's fine. I also do this a lot too. So here's one of my magnetic coolers. So this is a thermoelectric cooler. It's powered. It gets super, super cold on this pad right here. And where did I just put my OnePlus 13? And I just stick it, come on, right, I've got to rotate it right there. And look, it totally stuck to the case, right? Look, it's supporting the weight of the phone, and I'm kind of shaking the phone with this really cool MagSafe cooler thing attached. And guess what this cooler came with? It came with additional magnetic sticky bits that you could stick to a case that doesn't have magnets built in. Look, I could just peel this off the phone and just, oh, look, it's snapped right there. And it's really on there. It's pretty firm. So I don't care. I don't care if we've made Apple accessories a defining standard for accessories. MagSafe is stupid. Wireless charging is pretty stupid. It's way more expensive to charge slower. And it's only convenient in a handful of accessory interactions. When you look at how much more it costs to incorporate the full standard and spec of Qi 2 and MagSafe, there isn't a win there. It's not more convenient. You know what's more convenient is plugging my phone in for 15 minutes on a USB-C cable and then knowing that that's going to give me like a day and a half of runtime. If I'm going to charge my phone for an hour, my tank with a 17,000 milliamp hour battery charges in about an hour. 17,000. It's got 2 cells that are bigger than the 1 cell in my laptop. And it charges in about an hour from empty to full. But you're not going to do that on MagSafe because MagSafe is stupid slow charging. So I can't be bothered. In fact, I'm actually kind of impressed, and I want to give Samsung a kudos. You didn't need to add to the component price in your phone, the engineering or machining costs. Your phones are still going to get a price hike, and they're still no different than they've been for roughly 5 years now. But at least I didn't have to spend more to support Apple accessories on a Samsung Galaxy. I wish you would improve the camera sensors. I wish you'd improve some of the consistent issues we've talked about with software. I wish you would look at DeX and instead of making DeX more tablet-like, make it more Linux-like. All these things that I could really wish for on a Galaxy. I wish the Samsung Galaxy Ultra had the Ultra camera sensors that you sell to Vivo and Xiaomi. That'd be really cool. I'm using Samsung sensors in the Vivo X300 and X300 Pro, and they're amazing. And I can't get those sensors on a Galaxy Ultra. But you know what I don't care about is Apple accessory compatibility. I can't be bothered. I'm gonna take a drink of coffee here. Sorry, I don't know if there were any comments on that. I really went way too long on talking about Samsung and magnets. I'm sorry. I'm sure there are some comments here. I'm reading through some of this stuff here. Um, a future it's here. Good thing Samsung will be able to charge in 50 minutes, a first for a Galaxy device. It's so slow. It's literally one of the reasons why I refuse to use my Pixel as a daily driver. One, I hate eSIM and I don't want to roll my account over to eSIM. Two, when I use it, the battery, even on a brand new Pixel 10 XL, just does not really last me the day. The phone runs stupid hot in my pocket. And then when I do need to charge it, it's just so slow. And I refuse to do the I'll let it stay plugged in cooking the battery all night. It's just proper dumb. And I'll always put my SIM card in a Vivo, a Xiaomi, or a OnePlus because it's ready when I need it to be ready and I don't need to manage it to be ready. Oh no, my battery's down to 20%. You know what? That's still most of a day of use for me. And even in my car charger, because I have the little OnePlus car charger, I only need to plug it in for like 10 minutes. And then I've got a whole day of my use on a 7,000 milliamp hour battery. Anyway, I'm gonna I'm gonna let that go. I'm gonna bring this up just because I want us to keep an eye on this. When I came back from CES, I mentioned there was this huge interest in drones, in camera equipment, stabilizers, gimbals, action cameras, vlogging cameras. There was like a lot of like simmering buzz just because DJI wasn't occupying all of that kind of content creator conversation. And I want us to really keep an eye out, to keep a lookout. This is written up by Vlad over at GSM Arena. Vivo is working on a vlogging camera to compete with the DJI Osmo Pocket line. So they're showing the Osmo, which is one of these little handheld stick cameras on a 3-axis gimbal. And it's got this teeny little not remote, it's got this teeny little screen so that you can more easily compose and vlog with a higher quality image sensor that's stabilized, like hardware stabilized. It's a cool little thing. I prefer shooting from phones because I can immediately edit from the phone. The phone gives me a larger screen so that I can kind of see the video that I've captured. I like the phone experience better, but the stabilization experience on the Osmo is better than what we can do from a phone. You have to like really get good, especially if you shoot rear camera, you have to get really good at holding and stabilizing the phone yourself. If there was one company making phones today who I think could do a really good job of making an Osmo-like stabilized vlogging action camera, Vivo would be high on that list. If we took the camera tech, if we took the camera tech from like an X300 Pro, the high frame rate video capture, high frame rate in log, and HDR Dolby Vision video content that you can get out of an X300, and we put it into the body of an Osmo, that is high level want. I would be really interested in trying that kind of a setup, especially if we could do some really cool things like pair this with your Vivo phone, transfer that content quickly for uploading, streaming, et cetera, et cetera. I think Vivo could do some really cool stuff in that space. So they're projecting we should see hardware by the end of the year. some kind of Chinese accessory by the end of 2026. I really want us to keep an eye on this because I love the idea of these little tools that can kind of democratize, make video content production faster, more accessible, more, just easier for people to use. But then if there's a tie-in, I can use this camera with my Vivo phone or link. Like say I've got a couple cameras and I can link them all to the phone and do like multiple camera angles would be flippin' sweet. Xiaomi is ahead of the curve on that. If you have a couple Xiaomi devices, you can pair them all and have them talk to each other, and you can use like a Xiaomi tablet as a control surface. Blackmagic camera has a very similar capability. I want a Vivo. I want a Vivo action camera like real bad. To me, it would be really fun to play with. I don't know that it's gonna displace what I do, how I do my work, but I have high expectations that Vivo could give DJI a solid run for their money there. Oh, do we want to talk about this? Georgie saying at Furch, they can trash it now, but 2 years from now, when Samsung or Google move to silicon carbon, what are going to be their excuses to support their decision? We've got 2 more articles, and I want to make sure we shout out the dig. But do we need to talk about massive influencer channels in our tech communities? I mean, Average Dad was in the chat. He put out a video. It got some attention over on Glowing Rectangles, dig.com/glowing rectangles. I feel the issue keeps compounding. We've seen this kind of scheme play out. I'm just going to go ahead and go for it. I know I asked, do we want to talk about this? And I know we don't want to talk about this, but the reality of this is it is a cynical representation of our hobby. It's a facsimile of our hobby. And someone with millions of subscribers, millions of followers, they can put out a bad faith or a cynical, not earnest bit of commentary. They can play the heel. And they'll get tons of attention for it. And people are going to call them out in the comments. And folks are going to share those videos so that other people will shame that content creator too. But you know what you're doing, right? The influencer put out a piece of video knowing that it was gonna get reactions, and that's how they get paid. They make more money when they increase their viewership, their time on site, and all of the interactions fulfill what Google wants, which is more time on YouTube. So you calling them out makes them wealthier. You sharing their video makes them wealthier. You doing a sort of a criticism of their video is just going to drive more traffic to their video. So all of this like speculate, oh, but what about this? Or how about that? Or how come they didn't do this? Or are they really testing that? No, of course not. They're not earnestly engaging in that conversation. If they were, they'd be pointing out Samsung's tragic and historic, horrific issues with battery tech and battery health. Most of the phones that I've been getting rid of from my little phone museum have been older Samsung devices, where those batteries fail at a shocking rate compared to all of the other manufacturers on my little bookshelf over there. They'd be pointing out Google. Well, why is Google gonna artificially limit the charge and the performance of your phone after 200 charge cycles? That's about a year of use, probably less, if you really do have to top off the phone as frequently as I've been having to top off my Pixel 10 XL with minimal use. 200 charge cycles is gonna go pretty quick. My wife broke 400 charge cycles in under 2 years on her Pixel 8. And that thing is running like garbage now. That phone is not aging gracefully because regardless of the battery health, not only on the Pixel A series, which have been having lots of battery problems, and on the Pixel Number series, which have been having a few problems, even on the Pixel Pros, the most expensive $1,000 plus pixels, after 200 charges, they're going to throttle you anyway. So why are we pretending that a OnePlus is suspect? Why are we pretending that a Vivo or a Xiaomi or an Oppo is in any way an issue? We've had these higher capacity single cell batteries in operation now for over a year. We're not seeing failure rates like Samsung when Samsung has a bad batch of batteries. So the potential harm is always greater with Samsung because they sell so many more devices. But of course, if you're an influencer with millions of subscribers, you're not going to call out Samsung because you know statistically that more of your Android viewership is on Samsung, especially if you're based in the United States. And Google's been putting a lot of effort and money into marketing their products. So if you want a good relationship with Google, you're not going to hit Google too hard, even though their current battery practices are horrific, are really concerning and scary. I am not recommending Pixel A series to my family and friends anymore. I think my dad is probably going to be the last one that we really ride this out. He's got the Pixel 8A. And then after that, I was like, I've got to move you to something else. I got to move you to a OnePlus, or I've got to move you to an import or something else. My mom is sitting over on the side just chuckling because she's now rocking her OnePlus 11 like it ain't nothing. Like, oh yeah, I plug in for like 5 minutes and then I've got like 2 days of my use. You're like, yep, because it's a better battery. So all of these like, oh, I'm going to do a commentary video because I'm so concerned about silicon carbon batteries, or they just won't last as long. Well, that's maybe true in a clinical study type test. If I took one battery on a more traditional lithium ion construction, and then I took one of these newer silicon carbon batteries and they were the exact same capacity and they were charged exactly the same and depleted exactly the same, that maybe the more mature lithium ion tech would outlast the silicon carbon. Except I can go 3 days on a OnePlus 15 before I need to charge it. And then when I charge it, it's only connected to my charger for 20 to 30 minutes if I want a full charge. If I enact a battery health thing where it only charges to like 80%, I don't even need to keep it connected that long. Whereas my Pixel needs to be charged a significant capacity of the battery every day. So even if the silicon carbon burns out like 20% faster, I'm able to keep it running out in the field 3 times longer. So I'll be putting fewer charge cycles, less heat on the battery, less degradation on the battery. And like I said before, we've already seen about a year of batteries in the field from Xiaomi and Oppo and Vivo and all of these other companies that are using more advanced battery tech, and I'm not seeing any significant failure rates. My OnePlus 13, actually, let me boot it up again. We'll keep running this. I don't use the OnePlus 13 as my daily driver anymore. But I mean, I had it turned off. Now, hopefully I didn't let it just completely battery deplete and shut off. That would be bad. But it tracks its battery health, and I want to say it's still at 99% over a year of use. I'm not bothered. Because I guarantee you, if I used my Pixels nearly as hard as I used this OnePlus, we would see more significant battery degradation on the Pixels. So I don't know when I shut it off, but it's at 72% battery. So now I'm going to go into battery, and then we're going to go to battery health. Where is the battery health? And it's at 99%. Maximum capacity, 99%. I almost exclusively use the VOOC, the super fast chargers that come with the OnePlus phones. This phone has had hard miles for a year. It's doing great. So I just feel it's yet another time for me to reiterate. Big tech channels, dudes with millions of subscribers that put out these weak sauce hot takes and just spread stupid FUD because they can always pick on the smaller manufacturers. There's always a tough criticism for a Xiaomi, a Vivo, an Oppo, a OnePlus, a Huawei, and Honor. But Samsung and Google and Apple, they get special considerations for using antiquated tech in their ultra priced gadgets because they make more money and they can't sever their relationships and get blacklisted by Google and Samsung and Apple. They need to be buddy buddy with Google, Samsung, and Apple because that's where their channel's really going to drive more traffic and make more money. And then they get early access and they feel entitled to getting early access. They'll throw hissy fits if other people also get to use devices before them. And they'll blackball smaller companies like OnePlus if everybody's on the same embargo. Well, I'm not going to review a OnePlus this year because their embargo was just too restrictive for me to tell the truth to my audience. And then you go and put out a video lying about battery tech. Good job. The only winning move is not to play. If you call them out, if you make a video rebuttal, if you share their video on social media, you make them wealthier. And I'm going to put this out there again. Every single time you see them put out a weak sauce video and you get upset and you think, hey, you know what? I want to educate other people. I want to make sure that people get the word that this video is garbage. You're never going to win. All you're going to do is stoke more of this fake debate, and all that's going to do is drive more traffic to their terrible video, which verifies their business practice of putting out terrible videos. It made us more money. Let's put out another hot take. It made us more money. Let's threaten to not review a smaller phone brand because then there will be outrage and people will drop tons of comments. And then we can review the phone just like we always were going to, but we made sure we made a spectacle out of it so it got even more traffic. It's all a game. Any one of these major channels, you can always predict what the outcome of their reviews are just by searching the phone names on Google Trends. If it's like a OnePlus, well, that doesn't get nearly as much search traffic as a Samsung. So in the OnePlus video, there's going to be some special consideration for Samsung and Google. If it's a Samsung video, you know that that doesn't get as much search traffic as iPhone, so there's going to be some special consideration for Apple in the Samsung video. Every single time. I don't need to watch these videos because they're so brutally repetitive in how they structure this search-backed review process. Every time they put out one of these stupid weak sauce hot takes, share someone else's stuff. Fight bad information with good information. Every single time they put out like some weak sauce video about batteries, go to Hugh Jeffries and share some good videos. Gary Explains could use more traffic. You want an explained video? Don't turn to a massive influencer. Turn to someone who actually will take the time to explain a more difficult concept. If you did that, instead of enriching the thing that frustrated you, you would be spreading goodwill in this community. You'd be giving other content creators a shot. You'd be getting better information out there. And the more we starve those massive influencer channels from traffic and attention, the more they'll need to adjust their commentary. It's just frustrating because I know that's not really going to happen. The people that are in my chat right here are already the people that are likely doing stuff like that. But if we don't spread the word on what this means, you can see like all the people who think they're tech savvy keep falling for the same social media shenanigans over and over and over and over again. It's almost like the EU needs to regulate the more addictive qualities of social media. Am I right? Brought it back. Up top. So anyway, I wasn't impressed, and I feel like anyone who's still spreading this FUD like, oh, it's an unproven battery technology. Nope, it's working great. We don't see failure rates. Oh, but what about fast charging is going to cook your battery? If you fast charge the way that Apple does, it runs your iPhone screaming hot. If you fast charge the way that OnePlus does, it's going to charge cooler than the 40-watt charging on a Galaxy. Like, that's really easy to test. Oh, I just got a weird blip. I guess Google is not happy with me criticizing their brand and stuff. I think I just lost all the chat. Oh, restream. Let me know in the chat. Someone leave a chat if you're able to see all this. Hey, all. Oh, that sucks. We had the whole chat on the side. That's so dumb. Um, uh, command control device. There is a term for this. I think it was rage bait or something. But the problem is people fall for it. You have to know what they're doing. You have to know what they're doing. And even friends in my circles of family and friends, like, oh, but they put out a bad information, so I'm going to let them know. I'm going to comment on their video that I'm displeased. You made them more money. And all that does is validate that they can do it again, and you'll go and give them more attention. Oh, Chris, it's huge. OnePlus fast charging is game changing once you're used to it. Like, I can't go back. I cannot go back to charging a Pixel every night. I am happy to give up call screen just so I don't have to charge a Pixel every night. And that OnePlus 15 is an absolute monster. My SIM card is living in the Vivo X300 Pro. Fast charging, real, actual fast charging with bigger batteries. Get me every time. And every time I do get someone to try another phone like a OnePlus, they immediately comment on, well, I was so anxious. I got to the end of the day and I was at home and I was getting ready to plug my phone in, but I still had 60% battery left. Yeah, because Samsung and Google and Apple think you're stupid and that you'll pay more for a crappy, underperforming bit of hardware. So I do want us to chat this out. I'm linking this, and we can bring it up. I'm going to abbreviate this because I do want us to wrap up with Steam and Valve and stuff like that. But over at Android Authority, written up by Adamya Sharma, Google just confirmed what Android fans have been praying to hear about AirDrop sharing. There's this little quote from Eric Kay, Vice President of Engineering for the Android platform, confirmed that AirDrop interoperability is set to expand well beyond Pixel phones this year. The quote from Kay, last year we launched AirDrop interoperability. In 2026, we're going to be expanding it to a lot more devices. We spent a lot of time and energy to make sure that we could build something that was compatible not only with iPhone, but iPads and MacBooks. Now that we've proven it out, we're working with our partners to expand it to the rest of the ecosystem, and you should see some exciting announcements coming very soon. So I'm not trying to throw cold water on this because I do believe eventually Google really wants AirDrop interoperability to work across Android and to work across Mac OS and iPad OS. I do believe that is the end goal. But when Google executives say, we're expanding this out to a bunch more devices, like iPads and MacBooks, I don't think Google's push is going to be AirDrop interoperability on all of the other Android devices right away. I think Google's push is that AirDrop is going to work across Pixels, and Google and Pixel are working to make sure that AirDrop works well across MacBook and iPads. But then, whatever spaghetti code they're working with QuickShare, I think Samsung will get preferential treatment and access to what Google is doing. But I don't think it's really going to move at any kind of scale until Qualcomm and MediaTek get involved and enable the Wi-Fi. I've already forgotten what the name of that protocol is. Wi-Fi Aware? I think it's Wi-Fi Aware. Getting that baked into Qualcomm and MediaTek chipset powered phones, and it'll be up to partners to enable those features based on Qualcomm and MediaTek's work, so that we get the full spread of AirDrop on all devices. I don't think Google's actually going to push it for Samsung and Honor and OnePlus and all those other manufacturers. I think right now they're going to enjoy the iPhone of Android has this capability of being able to share files with iOS devices, and their push is, can we make sure Wi-Fi Aware is working on MacBook and iPad also? That's what I think. When I read that actual quote, I don't see a Google executive saying, hey, yeah, we're really working. Your mid-ranger Vivo is totally going to be able to share. You know, that iQOO device that you really love, man, AirDrop is coming to that. I don't think that's what they're saying. So I would love to be wrong. I hope I am. I hope Google is saying, let's really make sure this is operating across the board on all Android devices. But I don't think that's their push anymore. I think they are also looking at what gives us a competitive edge and how can we keep features for Pixel, like call screen, how can we keep a feature and talk about it? Because that's an Android feature, but we're the only flavor of Android that can do it. I think it's gonna be what ends up happening there. Oh, Chris, I love it. I don't even hear my wife talk about her battery or phone needing charging since I got her the OnePlus 15 this year. So Marie's still been fighting. Her Pixel 8 is dying. There's that purple line running right through the screen. The battery just doesn't last. Um, we will be moving her over to the OnePlus 13, but I just haven't gotten her there yet. So again, I think it'll happen soon. It'll figure it out. Yeah, Georgie. I mean, I think this could be it. Samsung's for the first year, then the rest of the manufacturers. Google and Samsung have this weird on again, off again relationship. They, again, Google and Samsung might land this because a lot of what we use in QuickShare actually did come from Samsung. So if there's one hardware partner that gets the benefit of AirDrop first, it would be Samsung, but Samsung is a Qualcomm environment. So what is Google going to do? Are they going to say, first up, it's going to be Exynos powered Samsungs, and then we'll add Qualcomm? Or are they going to give a couple little bits to Qualcomm and MediaTek, and then let Qualcomm and MediaTek disseminate that support and capability to all of their hardware partners like Samsung? I don't have any special insight. I don't know. My fear is that Google is going to try and keep this Pixel exclusive for as long as they possibly can. Oh, John Gao. I'm with you in the greater scheme of Android versus iOS. John writes, Samsung is definitely going to get preferential treatment, but any increase in interoperability is a win. And this is exactly what good regulation does. You don't want to talk about politics. The only reason we can do this is because of regulators in the EU. Don't sit there and act like, oh, well, Google totally hacked AirDrop. I have a video on this. The reason why we can do this is because of the Wi-Fi Alliance, and we're forcing Apple to play ball with proper standards. That is a regulatory issue. So the reason you have this capability and the reason why you've got RCS on the iPhone isn't because Apple is so magnanimous about supporting the best experiences for their customers. Apple executives are like, F our customers. Make them pay more for a worse experience. That's what Apple thinks of Apple customers. That they're just wallets to invade. The reason why we have these is because of politics. So if you pay attention to politics, you could get this stuff faster. Write your local regulators and give them a thumbs up that you support these kinds of business initiatives so that we have products that actually work together based on standards where everyone benefits from the proliferation of an actual standard, like Steve Jobs used to talk about back in the day, where Steve Jobs would come out and say, hey, we think serial connectors are stupid. We're supporting this new thing called a universal serial bus that everyone can play ball with. And then we get to make more money on our products because we're not inventing connectors for stupid reasons like Lightning. That hasn't been invented yet. Because it's stupid to not use standards. Steve Jobs got it. I don't know why Apple fans seem to fight that so hard. Got Renee Ritchie. Oh, Apple shouldn't be forced to use USB-C. USB-C connector is already like 5 years old. It's too old. What we should do is let Apple invent their own connector. Cool, Renee. Awesome. That's some high-level tech commentary there. I hope you really dig that gig you've got over at YouTube. So, want to wrap it up. This is kind of breaking my heart because I had high hopes. I'm sitting on a little bucket of money, and I don't think my bucket of money is going to extend to buying a Steam machine. My bucket of money is really being reserved for Steam Frame. I feel Steam Frame is the potential first iterative little baby step in normalizing PC gaming emulation on ARM chips running some kind of mobile operating system. So that we've got a Snapdragon 8 series chip that can then run SteamOS and can emulate PC Linux gaming on a little ARM chip. And the more that we can encourage developers to support this kind of gaming pipeline, the better it will be for mobile devices also being able to play good games. The performance in a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 could be rivaling some of the more expensive non-dedicated GPU laptops out there. And I know people are like, oh, you can't even play games on this laptop. And I've got my Surface laptop over here, and the GPU is underpowered, generationally speaking, and I can still play Crysis at 30 frames per second. I can still play God of War with some upscaling at 30 frames per second. I can play every single one of my little indie platformers and roguelites, and Dead Cells runs like butter. We can do that, right? So if I can get that level of PC grade emulation down to an ARM mobile chip, I'm not going to be buying games 2 or 3 times anymore. I'll go to Steam, I'll buy a game on Steam, and then I'll install it on my phone. Because you know what? That emulation is already looking pretty good. So if Steam gets involved, if Valve gets involved and further improves the support for emulating, makes these tools better for developers, the pipeline of really cool game comes out on consoles and PC. Then we get our Steam Deck compatibility. Then we get our Steam Frame compatibility. It's a short jump. It's a small jump over, let's just make this an Android game. Let's just put this game out on Android, or work a deal with Netflix so that we get like more money for it. But the developer pipeline should get easier to make that kind of transition happen. I'm very, very anxious about Steam Frame. And really, the VR side of it is fun just because I like VR gaming. I like Beat Saber. I'll still fire that up. Just use it as like a stupid little workout because you can work up a sweat. But for me, what's really exciting about Steam Frame is the potential for disrupting what we think a gaming PC should be. And if we can get console quality gaming to an Android tablet, just imagine if I could take my OnePlus Pad, which is right here under my camera, because I like to keep it right in front of me in between the monitors from my workstation. What if I could flash SteamOS on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 in here? Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 that's also in my Steam Frame. And I could just run SteamOS from a really good Android tablet. I feel like there's so much potential in there. That's what I'm excited for. So I'm sitting on this bucket of money, and I'm very anxious because, like every other manufacturer out there, Valve is just getting hammered by the potential price increases on RAM, on solid state drives, what's going to happen to silicon. This is a custom chip from AMD. It's going to look like some of the Strix mobile parts that AMD has put out, but it's its own little flavor of the chip because we know that the manufacturing line for the Steam machine is going to be limited. That's going to be an issue for pricing, how expensive the components are. like, again, why I get so pissy about AI is because it's all speculation. OpenAI, Sam Altman can go out and say, over 2026, we're going to buy up 40% of the manufacturing capacity for RAM to fuel our data centers. Now, did he commit to that? Are they actually spending the money on that? No. That was just the disclosure of a plan that they hope to execute if they can raise hundreds of billions of dollars of funding over 2026. But Sam Altman just saying it immediately course corrected all of these manufacturers like Crucial and Micron so that they stopped making RAM for consumers, which jacked up the price for consumer RAM. Just them talking about their business plans is wrecking the consumer environment. And they want it that way, again, because of people saying things in the chat. Like, what they want you to do is use a subscription cloud computer instead, and F that. Politely, respectfully, like, go walk into a burning building. Like, that is the worst scenario we could conceive of in this era of computing. So I pulled up this article, not because I really want to dig into the specifics of this article, but because I feel it contributes to a narrative that does a disservice to what we're trying to accomplish when we talk about something like the Steam machine. And I really don't understand why the techie narrative has stitched itself to this expectation the way that it has. I mean, I do understand everyone wants the bestest computer, the cheapest they can get it, right? Anytime you hold up something, you're like, it would be good if it were cheaper. Like, duh. That is not a valuable contribution to the reality of making a product. But this is written up by Kyle Orland over at Ars Technica. I'm a big fan of Kyle's writing. The article is why $700 could be a death sentence for the Steam machine. And this isn't really Kyle's editorial. This is Kyle talking to a bunch of analysts, which is horrifically stupid. Analysts are really good at examining current market trends quarter by quarter and then estimating what a market might do if nothing changes. So if things continue exactly the way that they are right now, in the future, the market could look like this. But that's not any kind of insightful commentary on a market like gaming, and especially in a consumer electronics market where prices are fluctuating radically. Your ability to predict is pretty crap. So we've got a bunch of analysts that are putting out prices on the Steam machine from, what is it? The low end expectations at like $599 to the high end expectations of over $1,000. And analysts saying like $700 is a death sentence and $1,000 is unsellable. And we're focused on this because Steam, the Steam Deck, found a whole bunch of support and a whole bunch of community and sold really well for being a reasonably priced handheld computing gadget, right? It didn't blow the doors off performance. Other handhelds have significantly outperformed it, but it was a reasonable price to performance that got people into PC gaming in a portable mobile way. It's Linux based, so you didn't have any other kind of interface or computer needs. You could just go right into gaming. It emulated the idea of a Nintendo Switch, but for your PC games. So we all liked that. And you could start at like $400. That gets people excited, right? Switch 2 is still selling reasonably well, even though we've seen sort of the interest tail off. I don't think Switch 2 is going to have the legs that Switch 1 had, but at $450, that's still a reasonable buy against some increasing prices on consoles. So we're picking on Valve. And we're trying to salt the earth before Valve can put out what a reasonable price for this machine should be. But we already know it's gonna be a new AMD APU. That's the CPU and GPU combination in a portable device like you would see in a laptop. And we know it's gonna be more powerful than the last generation of AMD hardware. So I've got a bunch of these guys, these things. This is a Geekom mini PC. This one is running the 7940HS. That's 2 generations older. But this 7940HS has very similar CPU core configuration and a nearly identical GPU to the last generation of 8000 series mobile AMD parts. It just doesn't have quite the same AI capabilities. The NPU is a little less powerful. So this right here is, I want to say it was a $600 or $700 machine that's going to be less powerful than the Steam machine. So this right here, let's just round down. Let's say it's $600. Well, that's still more than the low end estimations. Oh, I guess $599. Let's just say they're both $599. So this at $599, I think is a reasonable buy if you're really looking what goes into a mini PC. It's not the best buy you could get. Maybe you should try to find a good sale, shop it on a good sale, and you would definitely be happier with that price to performance. But I don't feel like the MSRP is totally out of whack given everything that's going on in the market. $599. But this is less powerful than what a Steam machine would be. So why would we expect the Steam machine, an even more boutique, more powerful, and built to a higher degree? Because this doesn't even have the power supply built into the case. The Steam machine is going to have the power supply built in. Why would we expect a more powerful machine built at a completely different scale than this little mini PC to be cheaper than this mini PC? Where did we get this expectation? When the Steam machine was announced, we were looking at my Geekom A9 and my Ace Magic. Those were $900 mini PCs. $900 mini PCs that were going to be less powerful than the Steam machine. So it would be really cool if Steam could subsidize the cost of the Steam machine, expecting that they were going to buy more games, but you still would be subsidizing the price of the mini PC, subsidizing the price of the Steam machine, probably to about the same range as the last generation of mini PC hardware. I really couldn't understand any market, even before all of the massive issues that we've had with RAM and storage, where a Steam machine was reasonably going to be well under $1,000. I just don't see any data to suggest that that ever would have been a reasonable outcome. I got to put this thing back in its box here. Because the other thing that I think a lot of folks are sort of forgetting, one, the enthusiasts out there, I have the Geekom A9, it's got an 8945HS, and I'm running SteamOS on it. And it runs great. It's a $900 mini PC. SteamOS is blown away my Steam Deck on that AMD APU. But it also costs about twice what I spent on my Steam Deck. So let's just so the enthusiasts can always kind of take care of themselves. You can run, I forget what the other Linux distro is, Bazite or however you say it. You can run SteamOS pretty well on a machine. You can run Steam on a Linux distro, it works pretty well. But also, if you want the less expensive, kind of lower end 720p to 1080p gaming experience that you can plug into a TV, the Steam Deck still exists. Do you want that machine to be more like $500? Then get a Steam Deck, ignore the Steam machine, get a Steam Deck and a dock, and plug that into your TV. And that works pretty well. I have taken my Steam Deck to my family's house, and we do that. My buddy Andrew got me a really cute little dock, and I put a 256 gig SSD in it, and it's got HDMI, and we can plug in multiple controllers, and it charges the Steam Deck, and it's awesome. And yeah, I'm not getting the most amazingest frame rates on the most graphically intense games, but I can still play RoboCop okay on it. And we have a lot of fun with Sonic Racing. That game looks great. And that Steam Deck can keep it running above 40 frames per second. I feel like that's fine. I feel like that's pretty solid. So we're going to have to wait out. I'm sitting on this bucket of money because I want Steam Frame. I want the VR headset. I want the VR experience again, and I want to play with the future of PC gaming and emulation for mobile ARM chips. But I'm just really tired of this PC gaming techie commentary. Like, an ARM chip in a laptop can't be good enough because we're judging it by like a dedicated GPU laptop, which doesn't get nearly the same battery life and isn't better at like editing creative content on the go because the ARM chip just rakes x86 when you're unplugged. I'm getting really frustrated, and I'm not really quite sure how to direct my nerd angst, but it's like we're not really positioning this. We're complaining about what it's not. It's not a cheap console. It looks like a decently built mini PC using the most powerful components that mini PCs have access to, and those are expensive. So $700 for a Steam machine, according to this analyst, is a death sentence. But haven't we been seeing rumors about what the next Xbox is going to be? That Microsoft is seriously looking at a platform where Xbox is just another Windows PC. And some of those rumors and leaks are pointing to an Xbox that could be $1,000. An Xbox Pro that could be $1,400. Will that happen? I don't know. Xbox pricing just took a hike. PlayStation pricing is getting more expensive. So it's very possible that if this trend in AI and component distribution continues, that we could see consoles coming in at like $800. But it's a problem if the Steam machine is more than $700. Like, what is the price on a PlayStation 5 right now? Let me just pull that up right now. It would help if I could spell PlayStation 5. $550. $550. Okay, I mean, on Amazon I can find a 1 terabyte PlayStation 5 for $450, a digital edition for $500. Oh, there's a digital edition. Oh, that might be a refurb. Okay. But yeah, I mean, not even going up to the pros. $500 console there for your PlayStation. And depending on where you shop it, between $450 and $550. And a Steam machine at $700 is a death sentence? Okay. Sure. I don't get it. Again, I feel like Valve is making a play at normalizing a Linux-based experience for PC gaming. And if you want something, like, again, go get a mini PC and flash SteamOS on it. An all AMD build, it runs so well. And especially if you go 2 generations back, you are still delivering a more powerful experience than any of the, up until you get to the Z2 Extreme on the new Asus ROG Ally, which, hold on, that portable is $1,000. So I'm just really not impressed. I'm very frustrated by all the people that are like, oh, ARM for gaming is obviously stupid and it sucks. And then, oh, the Steam machine is going to be too expensive. And gaming PCs need to be this and have that. And I just don't think. And I feel like they're all just sort of talking past what the thing is. You bought $1,000 mini PC. $1,000 mini PC is not uncommon. $1,000 mini PC is a Geekom A9. It's a B-Link. It's a Minis forum. I don't even know how you say it, if it's Minis forum or Minis forum. Those all exist. Steam is just going to give us a more streamlined gaming experience and better Linux support, and that's what it's focused on. But you can still switch it over into desktop mode and use it as a full-fledged Linux mini PC. There's nothing wacky about that. That's what $1,000 experience looks like. And this one could be more powerful than a lot of the current $1,000 experiences that we have on the market. From Daniel, and again, the Steam Machine would be great if it were subsidized, but for $700 you get more performance on a custom-built PC than on a Steam Machine. Yes. So how many people are buying custom-built PCs? Right now, if I do the math, it is so much cheaper for me to get a Screamer workstation gaming rig from Costco pre-built. So you're not wrong. There's always the solution where if you want to roll your own, you can, and you can put in the time. Your time is worth money, and you can put in the effort, and you can build that all up. Totally, every single time. But that's always been the argument for like buying a gaming PC versus building your own, only except now, all of the component costs, building your own isn't as cost effective as it used to be. Now you might be able to get a pre-built with like an NVIDIA 5080 and what was it? I saw at Costco, it was like $2,400. I'm somewhere around here. It was around $2,400 for a 9900X and an NVIDIA 5080. I can't build that soup to nuts, get the case and the motherboard and the RAM and the storage. It's 32 gigabytes of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage, so it wasn't incredible. But for $2,400, I can't build that and then also bill my time. That's not a thing. So I want to wrap this up. Every week lately, we've been talking about the community at dig.com, digg.com. And I've been really happy to see that these little communities have been taking off. One, we're seeing increased interaction on glowing rectangles. That's always the tougher one to promote, because it's really, how do you spread better information? You were complaining about influencers with millions of subscribers just farting out nonsense videos because they'll get outrage traffic. Well, what you could do instead is maybe go to dig.com/glowing rectangles and find better videos. Maybe even a video. Average Dad was in the chat for a bit. He put out a video. You could share that video instead. Instead of trying to shame the influencer, which really just makes them more money, you could share a video from someone else and they'll get more traffic. And so one of the places you can find videos and articles like that is on dig.com/glowing rectangles. But we're going to wrap this up with the fun one, shot on Android. If you have an Android phone with a camera on it, you probably have a really great camera in your pocket. And this week, the most interaction, the winning photo for shot on Android comes by way of Bragster, Bragzter. The title of the post is "We All Love a Beautiful Sunset," and he shot these from the Xiaomi 15 Pro. You got a sunset over tall grass, and then a sunset over the water with a cruise ship sailing off into the distance. Some beautiful photos. Love, love, love. Actually put in the Xiaomi watermark so you could see what sensors and what the ISO and the shutter speed were. It's really cool just to kind of learn how other people share their photos. But got the highest engagement on the shot on Android community on dig.com. So beautiful work. I'm excited to see who is going to take the top photo next week. I'm gonna really jump in. I'm gonna start sharing a bunch of like my flower macros and snail shells and stuff like that. I want to see if I can rig it for myself. If other people share their own photos and they win organically, that'd be pretty cool. So you can go to dig.com, digg.com/shot-on-Android. I wasn't thinking when I made the name of that community, but you can find it there. This is now, I think, the top mobile photography community on Dig, which means we're pulling in more traffic than iPhone shooters. Pew, 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 pew. Pew, 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 pew. So Bragster, excellent work, and thank you so much for sharing those photos. They really came out great, and people seem to really enjoy them. Georgie's got competition. Georgie's heron photo from last week was absolutely stunning. So that's gonna wrap us up. Everything we talked about, all the links in the show notes. Audio versions of the podcast coming out shortly, probably later this afternoon. Definitely catch all of the links on somegadgetguy.com. That's the place where all the links are going to live. And then the patrons always get the cleaned up, edited version of the podcast. Just save some of the slurping and pausing and all that nonsense that gets cleaned out. Patreon.com/somegadgetguy. I've got so much stuff coming out this week. It's going to be awesome, and I'm really excited. There's some really fun stuff to talk about. I'm so appreciative of all the people who are along for the ride. So, folks, have an amazing week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. And I want you to share content from people who deserve more attention. Stop giving attention to people who feel entitled to your attention and are only going to use it to enrich themselves at the expense of our little geeky community. We can be better. We all can be better about that. Catch you back next week. I love you all. Be safe, take care, and have a good one. I'll catch you back.